St. Joseph's Memorial Hospital stood as a beacon of medical excellence in downtown Chicago. With its sprawling hallways, high-tech facilities, and a team of top-tier medical professionals, it was a place where life and death decisions were made every second. But beneath its polished reputation lay an unspoken hierarchy, where power dynamics often overshadowed compassion and fairness. Among the staff was Olivia Carter, a dedicated and hardworking nurse with 5 years of experience in the emergency ward. Olivia had faced many challenges in her career, but nothing compared to the subtle and sometimes overt discrimination she endured daily. Being one of the few Black nurses in the hospital, she was often dismissed, overlooked, or even mocked by some of her colleagues, particularly by Dr. Stephen Langley, a senior physician with an impeccable record but an arrogant demeanor. Dr. Langley, a middle-aged man with salt and pepper hair and an air of superiority, often belittled those he considered beneath him. To him, nurses were just assistants, mere tools to execute his orders. And Olivia, despite her intelligence and dedication, was no exception. One stormy evening, the emergency room bustled with activity. Paramedics rushed in and out, patients moaned in pain, and doctors scrambled to keep up with the influx of cases. Olivia was tending to a middle-aged man admitted for chest pains. The patient, Mr. Daniel Richmond, had arrived alone, dressed in a simple, wrinkled suit. He seemed oddly calm despite his condition, answering questions with a measured tone. "Good evening, Mr. Richmond," Olivia greeted with her usual warmth, attaching a heart monitor to his chest. "I'm Nurse Carter. We'll take good care of you." Mr. Richmond gave her a kind smile. "I appreciate that, Nurse Carter." Just then, Dr. Langley strode in, his gaze briefly skimming over Olivia before settling on the patient. He didn't acknowledge her presence. Instead, he grabbed the chart from her hands and started scanning it. "All right, let's see what we've got here," he muttered. "Chest pains, possible cardiac event, probably indigestion." Olivia opened her mouth to interject. She had noticed irregularities in Mr. Richmond's ECG readings that suggested something more serious, but Langley held up a hand, silencing her. "I don't need commentary, Nurse Carter," he said, a smirk playing on his lips. "I've been doing this longer than you've been alive." Mr. Richmond's gaze flickered between the two. Olivia clenched her jaw but remained silent. She was used to this treatment, but that didn't make it any less humiliating. As Langley examined the patient, he turned to Olivia with a condescending chuckle. "You know, Nurse Carter," he began, his voice dripping with sarcasm, "some people just aren't cut out for critical thinking. But don't worry, you're great at following orders." A few interns standing nearby chuckled nervously, unsure if they should be laughing. Olivia's face burned with embarrassment, but before she could respond, Mr. Richmond cleared his throat. "That's an interesting way to talk to a colleague," he said, his tone calm but firm. Langley raised an eyebrow, clearly not used to being questioned. "Excuse me?" Mr. Richmond sat up slightly. "I may be a patient here, but I can recognize when someone is being disrespected." Olivia looked at him, surprised. No patient had ever defended her before. Langley, on the other hand, scoffed. "I'm just stating the facts," he said dismissively. "Nursing is an admirable profession, but let's not pretend it's on the same level as medicine." Olivia felt her hands clench into fists. She had worked tirelessly to be here, to earn her place. And yet, here she was, being belittled once again. Just then, the door swung open, and a woman in a sharp suit walked in, her presence commanding attention. Dr. Evelyn Clark, the hospital director, surveyed the room before her eyes landed on Mr. Richmond. "Sir," she addressed him formally, "we weren't expecting you tonight." Langley frowned. "Wait, you know this guy?" Dr. Clark's expression turned unreadable. "Dr. Langley, may I introduce you to Daniel Richmond, chairman of the hospital board?" The room fell into stunned silence. Langley's face paled as he turned to look at Mr. Richmond, who now regarded him with an amused yet knowing expression. "Surprise," Mr. Richmond said, crossing his arms. "And you, Dr. Langley, Just showed me exactly how you treat your team when you think no one important is watching." Langley opened his mouth, then closed it. His confidence had vanished. Dr. Clark turned to Olivia. "Nurse Carter, I apologize for what you've endured. This hospital prides itself on inclusivity and respect, and Dr. Langley's behavior is unacceptable." Olivia blinked, stunned. For the first time, someone in power was standing up for her. Mr. Richmond added, "I will personally be reviewing hospital policies to ensure this kind of behavior doesn't continue. And Dr. Langley, we will have a meeting about your future here." Langley's face was a mask of shock and fear. He mumbled an apology, but it was too late. As Olivia walked out of the room, she felt something she hadn't in a long time. Vindication. The years of belittlement, the silent struggles, the overlooked contributions, all of it had finally come to light. Mr. Richmond stopped her before she left. "You deserve better, Nurse Carter. Keep pushing forward." She smiled. "Thank you, sir. I intend to." And with that, Olivia stepped into the hallway, her head held high, knowing that change had finally begun.